Okay, today I'm joined by a South African journalist, one of my favorite colleagues, I think, that covers African football, Njabulo Ngidi. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
You're better than me, anyways. I've sort of lost my voice here. It's as we record this today, it's November 27th, just a few days after Hugo Broos announced his provisional squad. And it seems like it's about time that Afcon preparations have started to begin. Is that about correct, Njabulo?
The qualifiers for the World Cup, especially the last two legs, were kind of helping the team prepare for that because that's similar to the type of opponents they would get. I mean, having Nigeria in the same group was good test in terms of the one aspect I think Bafana lacked, being able to deal with the physical threat. I mean, when you look at since the last Nations Cup, the only game that Bafana have lost on the pitch in duration time was against Mali, a physically dominant team that sort of bullied them in the second half. So getting Nigeria was part of that preparation, and that has been the road. I mean, ever since the confirmation with that victory in Cape Town, it's been that, and the talk has been to try and better that place finish. They don't want to say it loudly, but the general belief is that this team can improve on what they were able to do at the last Nations Cup.
Because I don't think there has been this much expectation for a Bafana team in a very, very, very maybe the '98 Afcon maybe, because Afcon has always been one of those tournaments that I don't know, we don't expect to see Bafana do very well in, but last time around in the Ivory Coast they were incredible, and then since then they've been very, very good as well. So what's the anticipation like from fans?
It's very high. I think it's high and also measured. I mean, Bafana for the longest time we've had this relationship where you don't expect too much because when you start expecting things, that's when they tend to disappoint. I mean, in the last Nations Cup, the expectations from the general public were very low because of where the team had been and struggles to even qualify. The team they had missed out before, so it wasn't that high. So what they were able to do to finish third really changed things, and I think that performance brought South Africans and the team together because after that, almost all of the games in the country were sold out, if not 75% sold out. There was a stronger connection, and even though I mean, one of our problems in the country has always been that we look at the national team to club allegiances. So we don't necessarily support the entire team. We support my players from my club. And that has slowly been changing. I think there are still those sort of cases, but you find like Pirates fans like vehemently defending a Sundowns player. And I mean, one joked, guy who supports Chiefs before the international break because Chiefs had wanted to sign Oswin Apolis. And they said, oh man, after the international break, it's like, oh man, now I have to pretend like Pirates signing Apolis was a bad signing. So there's been the strong unity. And I think that's one of the best things about this team. And we see that even in, I mean, the intense rivalry now in the country is Sundowns and Pirates. Whenever they face each other, it becomes tense. I mean, at some point, I mean, I was seeing the interview that you recently did with Rulani, but when Rulani left to join Pirates and came back to face Sundowns, one fan stormed the pitch and tried to assault him. That's how bad it's been. But because of the close bonds, I mean, when they recently played each other, after the game, when all of that intensity died, you just saw genuine brotherhood. And I think that's the biggest thing that this team has, this strong sense of brotherhood. And from having seen the AFCON, it's not always the best team that wins the AFCON. It's not always the most talented team that wins the AFCON, but it's always the most united team. I mean,
100% agree.
you
100.
look at Algeria, they were not just fighting for a trophy. It had significant meaning because of what the country was going through. You look at Ivory Coast, they were down and out. I mean, they looked like they were eliminated in the group stage. They rallied together and fought, and also this was a Nations Cup that was being used by a dictator as to prop himself up, but the football remained football in terms of it was just so that power of the AFCON that it's not always the team with the best players or the most talent that wins. It's the one that's united. I think that's what bodes well for Bafana because the brotherhood in this team is the best that I've seen ever since I've covered this team.
100% agree. And it's not always just unity between the players. It's also, as you mentioned, like the atmosphere with the fans, the journalists. It's very, very important. 100% agree with you. Let's talk about the coach, Hugo Broos, because I think before he came to South Africa, I think we are all still a little bit mitigated about him. He had won the AFCON with Cameroon. He was a respected, I think, coach on the continent, but the job that he's done with Bafana, I think, puts him at a level above now. It makes me look at his entire past career on the African continent with a different lens. What were your expectations before he arrived? And how do you think he's done since he arrived?
They went that high. I was surprised, but also not disappointed when they hired him because one of we've got a terrible track record of hiring coaches in the country, and we've always gone about it the wrong way in terms of either looking for a name or someone who excites people or someone who spins people. I mean, Stuart Baxter was a very good salesman, and there were elements of his coaching that needed challenges that I don't think he was the right guy to come back for a second term. But because of the limited options, so our way of going about hiring coaches has always been very weird. So when Hugo came, it was a shock. I mean, yes, he was an AFCON winner, but he was not sexy. And that's what South Africans want. I mean, there were some people wanted Hev because two times Nations Cup winner. He's charismatic. He sort of like is a likable guy. So when this guy came, it was really like a wet blanket. And even his first press conference was very like because he's not like he does not entertain. He's not, but he was what Bafana needed. He dramatically changed the team, got rid of a number of big players because I think that's been the biggest challenge with Bafana is that it's not necessarily been a lack of talent, but it's a lack of unity and people feeling entitled to be part of the team that they can just walk into the team. He changed that mentality. And one of the things when he came was, I mean, Tembazwane was the best player in the country at the moment, one of the most consistent players ever. And he said, no, he's too old. He won't pick him in the team because he wants to build a young team. And that was crazy because it's like, what do you mean the best player in the country is not good enough for your team? But when you look at the average age of the team inherited and the one he he sort of has now, it's changed. And that was the first sign of him saying that no one is entitled to the Bafana jersey. Everyone has to work for it. And I think the attitude of Tembazwane also helped because Tembazwane never sulked. He never complained. He just went about it on the pitch and proved him wrong. And when Hugo was proven wrong, he said, I was wrong. This guy deserves to be in the team and has been one of the leaders in the team. So the first thing was removing that the national team jersey belongs to certain people. And then he improved the work ethic. Because for the longest time, for some players, coming to the national team was just like a 2 week vacation to hang out with some of their friends. And even the training was not intense. Like it's just like, it's okay. Like it is what it is. The real work is at our club. He changed that. And there's some players good players, that they've been dropped purely because of their attitude. I mean, Jaden Adams is one of the most exciting number eights in the country. Before Sundowns was playing consistently, he came late for camp and was dropped. And he made it clear that this is an attitude he's not going to accept. And that's the one thing that whenever I talk about the players, is that what is it that makes Hugo special is that with him, there are no gray areas. It's either black or white. Everyone knows where they stand. And I think having that clarity has helped the team because now they've got someone who, one, they know that because that they beg and he fights for them. I mean, Hugo has taken on almost everyone in South Africa, even the PSL chairman, demanding things for the good of the players. So when the players see this guy constantly going out to bat for them, they do the same. And for me, the culmination of everything about this team happened in the draw against Nigeria in Bloemfontein. Bafana, I mean, I hear Nigeria saying that they didn't have Osimhen. Bafana did
I
not
was going
have
to ask
half
you
of
about
this
this.
team.
Please allow me to just cut you off for this because that was the discourse about South Africa at the last AFCON. It was, oh, they have 8 players from Mamelodi Sundowns in their starting 11. They have the team chemistry. You just have to plug and play, like as if the coach wasn't doing anything. And then you're playing your most important match of World Cup qualifiers. You have it's a completely different backline. Kabini, Mbokazi, Ngezana, Mdunyelwa. You have Sipo Mbule, who's kind of a new arrival, and he's done a great job as a number 10, sort of. Oswanapolis had not been starting for 3 years. He's kind of like, it was that calendar year. And then Lyle Foster, same thing. Like, he hasn't been a consistent, I mean, recently, yes, last 6 months, yes, last 6 to 9 months, but
It wasn't
I
even
mean,
at the Last Nations Cup.
and on a shitty pitch, and they're still playing good. They're still playing. They're still applying his instructions. That was the most impressive aspect for me from Hugo Broos.
So it's two things. I think one, whenever people say that it was just Sundowns, you just throw them in and it's there. I think there is an element of correctness in that, but it's also a bit not fair because Bafana played like Sundowns against Mali and they lost. In terms of that possession football and wanting to play an enterprising brand of football. And the players sat down also with the coach to say, okay, this is not going to work here. It's not about being pretty, it's about being effective. So when you look at Bafana, they were very quick to get into the box, which is something that Sundowns were not doing. So yes, there was that understanding that this is a Sundowns team. They used to each other, but they were playing slightly different football. And they were grinding out results better than Sundowns. And I think if Sundowns had adopted that approach that Hugo Broos's Bafana are doing, they probably would have won the Champions League because that was the only thing missing to be able to grind out results. And in the Nigeria game, it was madness. And I think a reflection of how far this team has gone because it was his second cap. Dumielo was not even part of the team because we do not have the best right back. And apologies to Hakimi in the continent, Mudao. Because I mean, Hakimi is in a scooter. So at the moment, the best right back in Africa is Kuliso Mudao. And Bruce did not pick him in that game because Mudao had a fallout with his club, Sundowns. He wanted a new contract and was not training. And any other national team coach going into a must-win game against Nigeria, your best right back, you take him. But Bruce, out of principle, he said he understands what Mudau was fighting for, but Mudau crossed the line when he stopped training. That's why he's not going to pick him because, yes, you can have an disagreement with the employers, but the moment you start not to training, you're not doing your job. And he can't pick someone who's not training. So he dropped him. Tapelo Morena, who's cover for right back, was injured. Nico Mobu was the third choice right back, was injured in the game before Nigeria. So the entire back four was new. They had not played with each other. That was the first time they were playing against each other. And they were playing against probably the most talented team on the continent, one of the most physical team in the continent that had the reigning footballer of the year in Lookman. But they just fought. And the thing is that they knew that it was not going to be a football game and it was going to be a physical game. That's why Bogaz was important. Kabili was brought in. Gezana, they bring in that physical dimension. And Nkota and Mohau and Mbule, they sort of were there and Papolis to bring speed because that's something that most physically imposing teams don't want, like wingers who are going to run at them. And for me, that's the best game I've seen Bafana because they just showed heart and character. They fought for each other. And that's the thing that Bruce has implemented that no one deserves to be in the team. And if you are picked here, you deserve to be here. So it does not matter who you play for, it does not matter how many caps you have, but as long as I pick you, I believe in you. And then also that team, it was also nine, I mean, apart from Foster, most of them were playing in the PSL, which is also something that is done to go about it. I mean, most European coaches, when they come and coach in the continent, they look at any semblance of connection or player who's playing in Europe. I mean, you look at Tanzania, they had Simba and Yanga, two of the big teams in the continent, but their coach was scouring abo like obscure leagues in Europe because that's where talent is. Bruce begged his players and even said, just because you play in Europe, it does not mean you're the best. And because of that and the work that is done, this team was able to fight the way they have physically, to fight for one another like they have, because the chemistry and everything that has been done. And I think for me, that's the game that made me believe that we stand a good chance to win in the Nations Cup because we had all the elements that you need to win an AFCON. They had physical strength, they had good position, they looked good on the ball, they took their chances. And I mean, even they drew that game, which felt like a loss, from a goal that was a handball. Because if there was VAR, Bafana were winning that game. And even that, there was no bitching about that or that goal was a handball. It's like we did what we had to do. Things did not work out. We didn't get the win, but okay, next one we're gonna fight. And that's something that South African players have never possessed. And that's why we've struggled with the Nations Cup or Champions League. It's not having that character to just give it your all.
So what would you say are the coach's strengths and weaknesses? I think we just spoke about probably his main strength is his ability to maybe adapt any player or be fair with any player, have a single unique standard that players have to adhere to play in his team. What about a weakness? Does this team, not necessarily the coach, but does this team have a weakness? I think usually we associate that with physicality or aerial duels, maybe defending corners, things like that. But what would you say is the team's weakness?
Yeah, I think it's two. I mean, from the coach's perspective, how he's used the bench has something that has been a bit of a concern. Like it slowly changed in the recent games, but I mean, it was a clearing thing at the AFCON, was that he always waited for initiative from the opponent. He was not proactive in terms of bringing changes that change where the game is. I mean, most of the changes would come late into the second half. And there would be a joke that it felt like he had to pay to make a substitute because of just how he did not want to make change. And I think that's the thing is that he, in terms of taking the initiative from the bench, that's something that he's not done particularly well. And there are going to be games where you, because the AFCON is the highest level, you can't wait to respond. You have to take the initiative that if plan A does not work, let's be on the driver's seat. And I think here's been a bit of caution about him in that he's waited for an external stimuli to react. And I think the other is the defense. I mean, yes, they're strong. Yes, they're good. But one of the things that helped in the last team is when you've got a center back pairing that knows each other, has been playing each other for a long time, then you've got a good understanding with the spine of your team. And we're likely going to go into this AFCON with a central pairing that hasn't played that many games together, because we might, I think the first choice would probably Mbogazi and Gezan in terms of the strength. And CBC has not been playing consistently club football, but he has an understanding with Mbogazi at club level, has played a bit with Mbogazi. I think that's the only really weakness, but how they've been able to cover that is Tebogo Mukwana, who's just unbelievable. The amount of cover that he offers defense, I mean, the work rate that he has is just sublime. And a lot of people look at his defensive qualities, but also when has the ball, he's able to start movement. So having someone like that who's able to drop deep and can quickly turn defense into attack is an advantage because obviously that's something that our opponents are going to target Bafana on. But when they win that ball and with the speed that Bafana has on their wing, that weakness can quickly turn into an offensive, just because of his ball playing abilities. So I think that those are the two things that would they really need to iron out heading into the AFCON.
Just a quick word on the squad, the preliminary squad. The main controversy that sort of I've seen people talk about was the exclusion of Grant Kakana. People felt like he should have at least just been included. He would have added that experience at the center half position. Um, What's your opinion on that? Do you understand why that decision was made? And were there any other sort of controversial decisions or no?
I think the one thing that is a gift and also a curse for Hugo is his loyalty. He's loyal to a fault. He begs once you don't do or you're not in the pitch of what he wants, then you're not necessarily gonna be in that picture. And for me, I think I saw even in the Nations Cup that Bruce is not a fan of Grant. He was, I mean, him and Boga and Mvala were the partnership at Sundowns, but he was the only odd one out in that all Sundowns affair, and he only came into the Afcon when CBC got a red card as cover. So he's someone that has never really impressed Bruce. So it's not a surprise that he's not in the team because he's also not been picked in a couple of recent qualifiers, and he's gone for Gezana and CBs in terms of the experience, and then Bogazi with youth. I mean, Dotley has not been part of the setup, but he's been there. So it's not a surprise. I think it's just what people would have liked. But when you look at the recent squad, Bruce has not been a fan of Grant, so it's not surprising to see him there. And in that squad, there are really for me, no surprises. I mean, even with Lodge, he was definitely someone that Bruce was not gonna go for, regardless of his form and what is done in Moroccan Wydad, which is admirable. One of the things that Bruce has constantly spoken about that he wants a quiet change room. That's one of the things that he prides in terms of having. And in previous meetings, when Lodge has been part of the technique of the Bafana squad earlier, he was among those players who were not necessarily fighting in the training before the game. I mean, because there's no disputing his talent. I mean, he's one of the most talented players we have. But I mean, Bruce has shown that it's not just talent alone, it's what you bring in the environment that you create in camp, in a squad. I mean, because especially at the AFCON, you're going to be there for a month. You have to have the right environment and the right people. And that's what is seen. And I think that's what counted against Lodge. And that's why he probably is not going to be a part of the setup whilst Bruce is in charge of the team because of that. And I think the only thing is, which is uncertain, is Tembazwane. I mean, his injury, because of his injury, he probably would not go to AFCON. But because of what he brings as the leader of this team, I mean, the sheer presence of him just lifts everyone up. Don't know if you saw when the team qualified for the World Cup in Bombela, he was among the players who were there. And the player that, if Tembazwane was there, would not play is Sipombule. He was so excited to see him. And he said,
They gave you
we're
some
only
big
missing
buckets,
you.
my family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was something. I mean, any other places, that's not the guy you want to see. And even Sip was like, he wants Temba to be part of the team because for the group, Temba is immense. And I think that might just be the one gamble that Bruce has to decide is that, do you pick a Tembazwane who might not offer you much in terms of playing personnel, but is very good for the group, or do you pick a squad that you're gonna use? Because I also don't see, with the financial situation of Safa, I don't see Bafana taking the standby players to Morocco. They're probably gonna go with just the final squad, and those who are on standby might only be in camp and not go because that's what happened in Cameroon. They just went with 23. So that's the only thing, big decision that Bruce has to make on Tembazwane. But the squad picks itself. I mean, the guy has been loyal. He's been very consistent with who he picks. So there really won't be much surprises when he finally names the 23.
What about the predicted probable 11? You said it's probably Gazana, Bukazi, maybe Sibisi as the center halves, Mudau, the best right back in Africa currently. Uh, Ronwen Woni is just keeper.
Left back.
Is Modiba. Okay, so what about the rest, the midfield and the attacking line?
I mean, the midfield, the squad. I mean, that's the thing that also has been is that it's been a consistent 11. It's just been injury forced because we know Ronwen is our first choice goalkeeper. Mudau right back. I mean, uh, no competition. If the Kimi was South African, he would be on the edge.
Who plays with Tebza and Mbule in midfield?
Stole. So I think that's the only thing. Yaya. He was influential in Cameroon, but hasn't been the same since his injury. But his back is playing consistently. So that is probably going to be Mukwena and Sitole as the two center backs. Mbule given the free role. Uh, Opolis and Kota on the wings, and Lyle Foster as the center forward, supported by Amoremi, who's been exciting in the league. And then there's gonna be that fight between, in terms of the center forward, Lyle Foster and Mahoba, because they offer you two different things. I mean, Foster is power; he moves defenders and creates space. Mahoba is the better ball player. He shifts defenders with his ball and movements. So you don't have like a number nine that necessarily stays in the box, but you get plenty of space. So those are the two like number nines that are gonna go, because those are the two in terms of, because he's been consistent with, and the changes are just gonna be them depending on opposition.
And what about somebody like Relabonile Mofokeng? What's been going on this season? He hasn't really been playing much. Is there a chance that he could start? Doesn't seem likely because maybe of the lack of playing time, because of the form of Aswan Apollos as well, who's been maybe
Yeah, I think
best players in South Africa.
Yeah, I think Dweller's issues is more mental than talent. I mean, when he had not played for a long time, came on for Pirates against Maritzburg, he provided a brilliant assist. And you can see when he's on the ball that like he still has that talent, but because of this uncertainty about his future, I mean, there's been a lot of talks about him going overseas. I mean, for many people, he should not be playing in the PSL. I think if he was staying, maybe stay for the Afcon and maybe World Cup and then go. But he's had like two very good seasons, and the step was that he would go, but he hasn't. And what has happened is that his friend Mahan Kota goes to Saudi Arabia, and Mbogaz now is reportedly going to the MLS. These are the people who came before him to the first team at Pirates, and now are going ahead of him. So him mentally, he's not been in the best space because of just this uncertainty. Is he going? Is he not going? And the coach has done well at Pirates to protect him by rotating the squad. So part of the reason why he's not been playing often is to ensure that everyone is ready, especially for the push towards the end. And Bruce is a fan of Mufukeng. I mean, he's also someone who's very good for the team. And his the way he's been supported, it's like he's every South African's last like baby brother. Everyone genuinely wants him to succeed. And even how he made his Bafana debut, it was against Zimbabwe. Ronan Williams, because it was against Zimbabwe in a packed Bloemfontein Stadium. Ronan Williams and Bafana were comfortably leading. Ronan went to Bruce and said, "This is an ideal moment to give Mufukeng his debut." When you look at the crowd and just everything is. And when he came on, it was just like, if that stadium had a roof, it would have been blown apart. Like just the sheer joy and excitement. And because he was not going to touch the ball, Tebogo Mokoena kicked the ball out so that he is given a chance, because the ball was in motion and he saw that he was being prepared to get to come on. Tebogo Mokoena made sure it happens now. And I forgot the third player who, when it was a throw, took the throw to him so that he gets a feel of the ball. So you have this like these two are rivals at club level, but one asks for the coach to bring him on. The other has that awareness to take the ball out so the substitute happens. And I think it's Tebogo who threw the ball, who got the throw and brought in to say, like, come and touch the ball. So there's always been like everyone wants Riley to succeed. And I think where he's at, it's something that is a national concern. But I think if Bruce has a month with him, no outside noise, he's someone who can make him be produced at that moment of magic. That also would come as a surprise, because most teams would not have seen him, because he's not been into the AFCON, he's not been playing, but the talent is there. We saw it in the Champions League. And I think because of also Bruce's loyalty, he's someone that he probably will take to the AFCON regardless of his playing minutes, but just because of him wanting to do right by the boy who's got a great future for the country.
So what's the ceiling and the floor for this Bafana team? Is it as drastic as winning the competition and being eliminated in the group stages? Or I think the floor is a bit higher than that. I'm very, very confident you guys will get out of the group.
I think this team, for me at worst, this team is going to lose in the final. Because of just also you look at how they got out the last time.
Sorry, did you say at worst? That's very high.
Our worst, our worst is losing the final. I think in terms of just talent and togetherness, and that drive to change the image of South African football, because that's one of the things that this group has been going on. And I think it was very poetic that the last venue for the World Cup qualifiers was Mbombela, because that's where in 2011 the team celebrated thinking that qualified when they didn't, because someone didn't read the rules. And when they went there, the players were asked two stadiums where you want to play. They said Cape Town or PE because they've had one of the best supports there and they've not played there for a long time. And then a decision was made by the administrating team to choose Mbombela, which was awkward given the history. But they said, okay, they didn't south, they didn't mourn. They said, okay, they're going to rewrite the bad memories of Mbombela. And even before the game, Ronan was like, no, when we dance tomorrow, we're going to be dancing going to the World Cup, because that moment is like, it's the dance of shame in South Africa. It's been etched in our memories, and they said they want to rewrite that. So it's a team that's been on a quest to rewrite the wrongs that have happened in the past, and I think they have what it takes to go to the final because of just the sheer unity and talent that is there. Obviously, I mean, football surprises happens, but I think with everything that they've shown, they are the team that can surprise people at this nation's cup.
It's incredible. It's always insightful for me to see how like the people that best know the team that cover it on a daily basis really feel. So that just recomforts me in my idea that the Bafana are going to do really, really well. And Njabulo, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. I always learn so much from you. Any last words?
Thanks for letting me on. I really appreciate it. No, it's just gonna be fun. I think the for me the thing is that the last AFCON was just on another level in terms of football. It was by far the best AFCON we've seen. And I have a feeling this one is gonna top that because the facilities are great. I mean, you can't complain about anything. The pitches are good. It's just talent. And looking at the growth on the continent and what teams have been doing, the so-called small teams, I think this one is going to top the it's going to top the last AFCON. And when it ends and Bafana lifting the title, it's going to be awesome because when it ends, it's going to be the 30th anniversary of '96 because it ends in 2026. And what a fitting way to celebrate that milestone.
Thank you, Njabulo. Speak soon.